Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, just a couple of things. If you could take your water bottles and stuff and put them down beside you. We're going to be taking pictures, so we're going to make sure we don't have water bottles and laptops and coffee and stuff. So if you put that down, that'd be great. Well, I'm really excited to be able to introduce our ring speaker for this evening. Mr. Dick Donnellan with Apartment Realty Advisors is our ring speaker. Dick is a tremendous supporter of our program. He is the current year chair of the Real Estate Advisory Board, and it's an honor to be able to work with him closely in helping direct the direction of the center, and also learning about the amazing things that he does with Apartment Realty Advisors. He's going to get into his background, so I'm not going to talk much about that, but just know that it's an honor and pleasure to have him here, and we welcome him. And
thank you. It's a real honor for me to be here, and for a number of reasons. First and foremost is I guess I'm now 10 plus years on the advisory board. When David called and asked me to get involved and be a part of it, I graciously accepted his invitation, and here I am 10 years later, chairman of the board. So you know, it's been rewarding for me, because I've had a chance to mentor a number of students. I've actually hired many students over the years, some that are still with me and some that have moved on. You know, I sat in your seats 23 years ago, and nothing like this, but that was when I graduated from the University of Florida. And I have 4 brothers and sisters, 3 of which also graduated from UF, so we're a huge Gator family. And met my wonderful wife here at the university. She studied pharmacy and became a pharmacist. We married 4 years after I graduated in 1978, and we had 2 wonderful, beautiful, bright girls, and one of which is here, my daughter Carly. So it's an honor for me to not only present to you, but I get to present to my daughter, which in my wildest dreams wouldn't have thought, sitting where I was, where you guys were 23 years ago, that I'd be here, the chairman of the advisory board, presenting to a class, including my daughter. So the stature of the university has risen tremendously since I was here. You almost really only needed to fog a mirror to get in, and I would not get in today based on the qualifications that is required. It's pretty incredible to see where the university has come to today. It's also really incredible for me because there wasn't a real estate program when I was here. There were real estate electives, but there was no program like there is now. I wish there was, because I would have really enjoyed participating in this type of graduate work in the industry I chose to go in. That's a whole nother story, but I'll just give you kind of the par 3 on it. I was going to go to law school, and when I first started as a freshman at the university, I was going to be a CPA and a lawyer, and that was kind of my goal. So I entered into the accounting track and started taking the accounting curriculum, and ran into cost accounting, and made a very, very quick decision after that course that I wasn't going to be an accountant. So I shifted gears in my sophomore year and made a shift to finance, and I was going to take the real estate electives that were available at that time, because I was hopeful that I would be able to manage my GPA a little bit better so that I could get into law school. So I went down that track, and I learned a lot and got a lot out of it. And I spent my summer between my junior and senior year studying the Kaplan courses to take the LSAT exams. Got through that, went and took my LSATs, put out applications to go to law school, and had this circumstance meeting with a lawyer who was selling a property that my father was interested in, my father was an entrepreneur in the real estate business. He asked me to go pick up the information that this attorney had, and I'm a young guy, I was a senior at that time, and so the attorney gave me the information. He said, told me about the building, sat me down, said, so what do you do? I said, well, I'm a student at the University of Florida. I'm getting ready to go to law school. And he said, really? And I said, yes. And he said, why? Why are you going to law school? Why are you going to be an attorney? And he's an attorney. I'm in his office. This is his law practice. There's boxes everywhere. And I couldn't answer the question. I could not answer him why I wanted to go to law school and be an attorney. Back then, it was you're either a doctor or you're an attorney. Those were the two professions that everybody kind of aspired to. And in that 1-hour meeting with him, he kind of convinced me, your dad's in the real estate business. Why don't you go into the real estate business? Because I've spent the last 20 years of my career as an attorney helping people like your father make money in the real estate business. And see all these boxes? I'm packing up my law practice, and I'm going into the real estate business. And I'm going, whoa, man, that was really a real revelation for me. So I decided to go in the real estate business, and I went ahead and graduated, literally had my cap and gown on, got my diploma, my car was packed up, walked out, got in my car, drove to Orlando, sat for the salesman's test for your real estate license, and 3 weeks later I passed the exam and started working in a little small boutique condo home selling brokerage office on the beaches of Fort Lauderdale. And that's where I started. I'd sold a condo for an older woman who was divesting of assets, was successful getting that sold. She brought in this small commercial property. It was like 5 or 6 retail stores, and said, well, do you think you could sell this? I said, well, I've never worked on a commercial property before, but I was literally a year out of school. And so, of course, I said, well, I haven't sold one of these, but I really give it a try, And I was successful getting that property sold for her. And in that process, I determined I really liked that better than I liked selling homes and condos, even though I was doing well at it. And that kind of launched me into the interest to get more into commercial real estate. So with that, I had spent a number of years with my father in his business, and made a decision. I wanted to get into, is that you, Wayne? I wanted to really get into investment sales business within the real estate industry. How do you do that? How's the best way for me to do that? So I identified the top brokerage company that was down in South Florida at that time, which was what is today CBRE, and its predecessor company was Coldwell Banker. And I had known someone that was an investment salesperson, the only investment salesperson in Coldwell Banker at that time. He was a friend of my father's. I told my father, I want to get into this business. This is what I want to do. I took the psych tests that they required you. It's like an all-day psych test. I got that back. They said, gosh, we don't think you do well in investment sales. We just don't see it based on all this information from your test. But you'd make a great appraiser. And I said, God, I'm not interested in that. I really don't want to do appraisal. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just wasn't interested in that. Well, the sales thing is, we're worried based on kind of the way you tested out that you'd spend way too much time on stuff that you shouldn't be spending your time on. And I said, whoa, God, that's quite a test, But I said, look, I'd like to work here, but I want to go into investment sales. That's what I want to do. So if you want to hire me for that, fine. I'd be happy to come to work here. So what I did was accepted basically an internship to get into the investment sales group with an individual who was really a very senior, experienced investment salesperson at Coldwell Banker. His name is Bob Sullivan. I joined him. I consider him probably, he's taught me mostly of everything I know that's foundational to the investment sales business. Important point is that he was an exceptional mentor to me. And having him as a mentor, I worked under him for a year. I got paid $1,000 a month. I mean, it was enough to put gas in my car, and that was it. And even though all the way back then it was still, you know, not very much money. Fortunately, my wife graduated with a pharmacy degree and was able to support us during that time that, you know, I'm making $1,000 a month, basically, you know, being a runner and doing an internship under this person. That evolved into me being offered a position to handle office building investment sales. I jumped into that with both feet. I worked alongside Bob. We added another individual into our group the year after I joined. This was around 1983. His name is Steve Miskew, and you may want to jot it down for anybody who's interested in the retail side of the business. Steve's on the board, and he's also on the executive committee of the board. So that's how far back he and I go. The three of us worked together through 84, 85, and we worked so well together, and we were doing pretty well that we came up with this brilliant idea to go out and start our own business in 1986. And none of you would remember this because, you know, it was so long ago, but that was when Congress made a decision to modify the tax code to the detriment of investment real estate. At the same time, they deregulated the S&L industry, which then started a snowball event that went through from the mid-'80s to 1990 of just an unraveling of property values. Not dissimilar to what we've just gone through. So now, to put it in a frame of reference, 86, that was a good year. It really hadn't started taking effect. 87 was okay. 88, brick wall. We are hitting a brick wall. 88 was the year my daughter was born. 88, I got a newborn baby, and I got a 3-year-old in my house, and mortgage payments and everything else, and no income coming because there's no investment sales activity at all. So after about a year of working hard on a bunch of transactions and deals that none would make, I started thinking, boy, maybe I got to look at another job. You know, I was seriously wondering what I was going to do. But the market did start recovering. All that S&L mess ended up, the government had to take those S&Ls back, just like the government is taking banks back today. And that created brokerage opportunities. So then I started selling shopping centers, industrial buildings, and things started to get better. Then I got asked to work on an apartment assignment. And this was right around in 1991 by a major insurance company that I had done some work for before things started to unravel. I don't know where I am in this thing, but I guess it's here. So then I decided in 1995 I was going to start an apartment investment sales company to focus exclusively on apartments. And I did that with my current partner, now going on, she's 13 years, 14, or no, 16, 17 years. And he was sitting in the cube across from me at Coldwell Banker. And he was in office building investment sales. And in 1986, when I made the brilliant decision with my 2 cohorts to go start our own company, he made the decision to go out and become the development partner for Lincoln Property Company and started developing apartments, and I ended up selling him his first site for apartments. And we were very good friends and did stuff socially together. And in 1995, 10 years later, we're both doing apartments. He's developing, I'm brokering. I end up doing a bunch of business with his company. We decided, why don't we form a company that does nothing but focus exclusively on a high-end service of investment sales for just apartments, nothing else. And that's when we formed Atlantic Realty Partners. That was in 1995. From 1995, it was just the two of us in a tiny little office. We had 4 rooms, an administrator and an analyst, Mark and I, in a conference room, literally that was about the size of this desk here. I mean, you could seat 4 people around this conference table. That's where we got started. We said, you know, we got to try and grow this platform a little bit. And wouldn't it be good to see if we can expand into, you know, the Southeast region. And we contacted a couple of groups, one in Atlanta and one in Charlotte, that were the same as us, a little boutique company that was focused exclusively on the apartment business. We got together for breakfast out at our major industry conference, which is the National Multi-Housing Council out in California. 4 of us at a breakfast table. Said, hey, why don't we kind of combine our strengths and leverage off of each other and share information openly. You guys take the Carolinas, you take Georgia, we'll take Florida, and we'll just work together, but we'll handle everything in Florida, you handle everything in Carolinas, you handle everything in Georgia. So that was the genesis of the apartment network. So I love this slide, and you know, you got to really get the dust off of it when you pull it up, but I mean, look at this. Look at the push pins, look at the graphics. I mean, but back when we did this, we thought this was, whoa, this is incredible, you know? And there was no digital, you know, this is just hard copy stuff, and we printed off thousands of copies of it and sent it out to our clients, and we're off and running as the apartment network. The way we then grew, decided to grow, and it was working. We had good synergies, we were sharing information with each other, leveraging off of our client relationships, and we said, we got to go to Texas. We'll make it not just the Southeast, let's make it the South. So the way we did that, we got on the phone with our clients, called them up, said, who's the best in Dallas? Who's the best in Houston that does what we do? Just apartments. And we got the names, we called them up, we flew out there, we met with them, we had a courtship that, you know, between both of these companies, only hoping we would get one of the 2 to cover the state of Texas. They both came back after 5-6 months of doing the dance with them, and they both wanted in with us. So we said, well, you guys got to figure out how to split up Texas. That was the kind of the original core when we went from the apartment network and rolled up those 5 groups under what is now known as Apartment Realty Advisors, and the successor name of Apartment Realty Advisors is now ARA. That's our brand in the marketplace. So we formed ARA in 2003 as kind of a roll-up, and we go on a march through the country now with this momentum that we have to duplicate that in all the major markets that were the high-octane apartment markets. And spent, you know, now we're 8 years into it. We have offices throughout the United States. I'll just go to that slide. 24 offices over 40 states, 80 brokers that cover just apartments. This past transaction volume, we did $5.3 billion. We've done as much as $8 billion in a year. We go neck and neck with CB. I mean, for apartments. And it's kind of cool for me that that's where I started in the 80s and started in a 4-room office. And today we go and compete. I mean, there's some other companies out there that do what we do, but really the 2 that compete the most on the apartment side of the business is our firm and CB. So that's kind of the genesis of ARA, how it started, where it is today. We're a dominant brokerage force in the market. We have since expanded our business lines to not just include apartments, but now we do seniors housing, student housing, manufactured housing, and affordable housing. And 2 years ago, we decided to form a finance business. Because we're doing all these investment sales, we might as well figure out how we can participate in the financing of those deals. And we formed a joint venture with a company called CW Capital 2 years ago. And CW Capital is a major force in the market. They're DUS lenders for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And they're the dominant lenders in the apartment business. So they provide tremendous liquidity. So we went to CW. CW looked at us, said, hey, you guys could help us get more loan originations. We can be more involved in the profit of those loans and help facilitate those loans. So we formed ARA Finance, another partnership that we put together. So none of this was done by one person. This is a collaborative effort of a number of people that got behind an idea and a cause and embraced it and rolled up their sleeves to keep pushing it up and pushing it forward. So that's kind of what the company's all about. We also do equity placements. I'm going to show you an equity deal we just put together, which is where we go out and help developers or investors raise the capital for their projects. This is just a quick overview of our Florida operation, which is what me and my partner are responsible for, is the state of Florida. So we have offices in our home base is in Boca. We have offices in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and 7 brokers throughout the state. Right now, I think we're at about, for the year, close to 20 transactions that we've completed, and they vary from apartment land to equity placements to straight out investment sales. So now I'm going to shift over to what we're seeing in the industry, in our industry, as kind of trends. There's a fundamental shift currently going on because of the melees that has just happened in the residential housing business, residential marketplace, that is shifting. There's a number of factors, that being one, that's shifting demand to apartments in a pretty big way. Population's expected to grow 33% over the next 20 years. So we're going to continue to grow our population. This translates into 60 million new housing units, 80 million echo boomers entering the housing market, 80 million. And most of those will be renters for a myriad of reasons for a period of time. Another factor, a demographic factor, is 10 million immigrants will migrate to the United States over the next 10 years, adding even more demand for housing. People are waiting to marry. People are not marrying today like they were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. They're taking more time to get married, which means they're in rental housing longer. Because really, when people want to own a house and plant their roots is when they get married and decide they're going to have a family and they want to be close to the schools that they want to send their kids to. It's the ideal time to be buying a house. Up till that time, you in today's world, the echo boomers, the young generation, want the flexibility. They want to be able to move, you know, and they just watched what just happened. This decimation in the housing market. In my generation, you bought a house, it went up in value every year, a little bit, you know, but it kept going up and kept going up. So then you'd outgrow that house and you'd find out, gosh, this is worth a lot more than what I paid for it. And you'd take that money and you'd be able to go buy a bigger house for your, you know, now your growing family and your 2 kids that you've got, so you need more room. And you're making a little more money now, you're established in your career, so you can upgrade. You know? So that move up market was there. And so, you know, consequently now, with this echo boom generation, they're waiting to marry, they're taking longer to have children, and they want the flexibility, and they don't necessarily think owning a home makes sense. Because in their minds, the psychology is those things go down in value. So we think that's, and married couples, once they marry, are waiting longer to have children, and they're not having as many children as they used to have. So, you know, you've got all these forces in the marketplace that are starting to affect demand shifting from home ownership to renting. So these are also some of the demographic shifts we're seeing. This walkability and desire for being in a area where there's close access. You don't have to spend a lot of time commuting in a car, burning up fuel, which is now just went over 100 a barrel this week. And that's not going to end. Fuel prices are going to continue with time to go up. People are now not wanting to spend 30 and 40 minutes in their car burning up a bunch of fuel. They want to be closer in. We're seeing the baby boomers who now have, they're empty nesters, the kids are gone, the house is empty except for the husband and wife, and they're out in the burbs where there's nothing really but new young families starting with their kids and not much that really caters in services for the retiring baby boomers, those who can retire today. And a consciousness about the green environment, you know, is also important. And we're seeing it big time in the investment capital that's coming into the multifamily industry. It's already been there in the commercial industry relative to development for LEED certification. Capital, new capital, institutional capital will not come in and invest in a new project today unless it's LEED certified. So that adds on a lot of cost onto a job, but you know what? If the capital is saying this is what they want, you better have it or you're not going to get anywhere. So that's becoming really important, and for all of you in the room, something to think about as a place where there's going to be opportunity. Savings, you know, there's, because of this, you know, they call it a recession. I think it was a depression, and we're still kind of in it. But government, municipalities, the federal government, none of them have any money. They're tapped out. Real estate prices, which supports counties and the states, have dropped. So they're in a real scramble right now trying to find money. Municipalities don't have it. You're hearing about bankruptcies happening. Alabama, and there's one now in South Florida, municipal bankruptcies happening. So where's the money come from to do the improvements that are needed to sprawl? The money's not there. So now there's a lot of cost savings associated with living in a denser environment and more efficient environment versus the traditional sprawl that we see throughout all of Florida. A lot of savings and costs there. Young people, we talked about this earlier, people aged 20 to 34 are 60 to 70% more likely to rent. If you haven't seen an aging chart, okay, pull one up and look at it. And you got the boomers, which we're entering into the peak time of the boomer generation, and I'm just on the back edge of it. And then the echo boom, which is all the young people that us baby boomers had, and are now entering those renting years as just come in college, getting out, getting ready to get into the workforce. Big demographic that's starting to roll in on top of the boomer demographic, that so many of those people now don't want to own a house. They're either upside down in their house, or they've been foreclosed and they don't have the credit now for the next 7 years to get a mortgage. They got to rent. It's a sad, you know, fallout of this mess, but it's reality, and it's in a demographic trend that is going to show up in the rental market. 4 million people turn 18 each year. This is what I just spoke about. Credit issues will preclude people from buying who would normally want to buy today but can't because their credit's been tarnished, either by not paying their credit cards or paying them late, or not paying their mortgage, or paying, you pay your mortgage late, your credit's shot. You don't pay your credit cards on time, that starts adding up, the scores start dropping. And in today's environment, we're getting back to the lending environment that wants to know if they're going to loan you 100 grand or 200 grand to buy something, boy, you better have decent credit. You better have a job. The novel idea. You got to have a job to get a mortgage. Well, a big part of the mess that we have just gone through is You literally, all you had to do was fog a mirror, and here's a mortgage. So, you know, no job verifications, just here's the money, take it, you know. And that's why all these people are in trouble today. They didn't know what they were really signing up for. So declining home ownership I talked about earlier, this is underway right now, and it is staggering. But we peaked because of the past couple administrations, and not this one, were promoting home ownership. I mean, that was a mindset that existed in the Bush and Clinton administrations. Get people into owning their own homes. That peaked out at 69%, which was right, you know, at the top of the wall. So what's happening now is you can see the graph. That's the rate of decline in home ownership. And now we're at 66. We were at 69. Every 1% drop in that rate pushes 1 million renters into the rental market that normally would not have been there. So you can kind of see, and this is going to last for a while. This is going to be in place for a while because of the previous slide that I showed you and all the reasons why. So a lot of demand drivers heading our way, and people in the know, you know, this type of information is prevalent throughout the industry on the capital market side. So now with this shift in demand coming into multifamily, we're seeing the larger MSAs are starting to recover. We're seeing rents going up, concessions burning off, occupancies are rising, which means bottom line revenue is going up. So anybody that owns an apartment property throughout the United States, this is happening pretty much throughout the United States, not every market, but pretty much. They're seeing their properties improving in performance. It's happening right now. So as that happens, then we have had virtually no new construction since the Lehman event in 08. It was October of 08. And that shut down the capital markets until really middle of last year. So we had a dearth of new development. It just came to a screeching halt. And consequently, nothing's been built. In the state of Florida, to even add on top of that, down in the Tri-County area of Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach County, we had 60,000 units taken out of the supply of the rental business and converted to condominiums. 60,000. And some of those have come back into the rental stream, but a big chunk of our base went out in those days, and it was wild. I mean, it was just an incredibly wild time in 06 and 07. In 07, we closed a deal a week, and it was unbelievable how intensive it was. So much so that we used to have to bring in a massage team on Friday afternoon to massage our staff, because there were nights we were working all night long. I mean, it was incredible. And the deals just, I've never in my career, and you saw earlier how long I've been doing this, have seen the motivation so high on both sides of the table. The buyers just had to get to the thing to close it, because they've already sent out notifications, and there's lines wrapped around buildings of people wanting to buy these condos. It was insane. People were coming out with their beach chairs and camping out at night to get a crack at, you know, hoping to buy a condo. And so that type of demand, which most of it was artificial, you know, because there's people not just buying one condo, they're going to your place and buying yours, and then all of a sudden you put your for sale sign up, so they sign a contract with you, then they come over and sign a contract with Carly, then they sign a contract with you guys. Now they got 5 contracts. It's one buyer. With the hope, and for a period of time, the reality was they could flip those contracts and flip them for 10, 20, 30, 40. There were clubs that started to be formed of people getting together as flippers. And because some buildings would be nervous about letting you take 5 units, so the club over here of 5 of you would each go sign for a unit. You'd pool your resources, and you'd form this group that went out and started flipping these things. So all this artificial demand created. Meanwhile, the capital side is looking at all these numbers of these condos just flying off, and no one was really paying attention to what was the real demand. Were they being used? They weren't. They were being abused was the problem. And the free credit that I talked about earlier, fog a mirror, here's your loan, that really caused the frenzy to occur. And so frenzy created prices moving, and price movement brought in the cab driver. I mean, I'm in New York in a cab, and I hear the cab driver talking about a condo he's going to buy in Miami. A contract he has on a condo in Miami. I'm going, oh my gosh, time to get out. So now we're past all that. Now we're back to sanity, and we're starting to see new development actually come into vogue for Southeast Florida. A lot of new developments in the works in Southeast Florida. Some in Tampa, some in Orlando, and starting to see a little bit in Jacksonville. Southwest Florida, we won't see it for a while. That was one of the epicenters for the subprime lending. Stockton, California, and Fort Myers is decimated. Starting to come back a little bit, though, on the rental market. Anyway, the unfortunate depression that we've been in forced the government to take extreme action on a number of fronts, and one was driving interest rates down basically to zero. So consequently, that's triggered into incredible financing rates that we have available to us today to finance apartments now. If you wanted to get a 10-year loan, you can get a loan now in the high threes for a highly leveraged loan. If you're an institution and you want to use 50% leverage, you can get debt today in the threes, low threes to mid threes, to finance for 10 years. So people ask me, how can you make sense out of cap rates at 5%? And really, when I've been in the business, cap rates generally for our products have been in the 6, 7%, and even one point it was 8%. But we're actually sub 5 in Southeast Florida. We're in the 4s on a cap rate in Southeast Florida. But this is because of the financing opportunity that's available right now. So as cap rates drop, apartment prices rise. People are seeing this. And boy, it solved a huge amount of problems. And it's really why you don't see many apartments as distressed assets, okay? Because of the financing, has really saved the day, because everybody went out and refied at these really incredibly low rates. I'm invested in a tax-exempt bond-financed 2 projects that were invested in Orlando, one out by the airport and one up in Maitland. And I get my quarterly statements, and it's amazing that I even get a dividend. I mean, every time I get one, I count my stars, because we invested in these 2 projects in the heyday, but they were financed with these tax-exempt low floaters, which means they float with the market. I don't think we've paid more than 1% since I've been invested in these properties. If they would have been conventionally financed, I wouldn't be seeing a dividend out of these deals. But that just shows you, for those tax-exempt bond deals, the incredible savings due to these low interest rates. Sub 1. So you dial that into one of the models you're working on, and that thing screams. And then when I talked about the dearth of supply, I touched on this. I'll just go quickly from market to market. Southeast Florida, the red line is the change in rent. The blue line is occupancy, so we can see it kind of shifting up. Core markets are rebounding, and Miami-Dade is expected to hit 97% next year. Southwest Florida, not as good a story, although occupancies have been recovering in Southwest Florida because of all the people that have been foreclosed out of their homes in Southwest Florida are now renters, but still not getting really good traction in effective rent growth there. Tampa, really good story in Tampa. It's getting a lot better, and we're doing a lot of business in Tampa right now, a lot of investment capital coming back there. Orlando, too, is an improving story, so we're seeing improvements in Orlando. Also a lot of investment sales activity, underlying effective rent growth reducing concessions, and we're starting to see some new development deals getting penciled in. Jacksonville, good recovery story there as well. And we're doing a lot. We just sold a land deal, which I'm going to show you up here, because land, it's like some of the first land to start trading in the state of Florida. There's been no land activity. When development shuts down, obviously land shuts down unless people are willing to give it away. Employment stats are still bad in Florida. We're 10% maybe on average, but we're better than we were, last year. So things are improving, and as the real estate market starts recovering in more and more areas, some of this new construction that's in the pipeline, which I'll show you, is going to start creating some new jobs in Florida. The NACREIF index, this is what all your institutions use to benchmark where returns are, and the way these returns work is it's the return year over year, which includes not only the cash flow from the property, but the change in value of the property from the previous year, because these institutions have to reset values and mark to market every year. So they may have gotten a good return at 4 or 5% of their cash flow, but you can see what happened in '08. And the market, look at that. It's staggering what happened to real estate prices. Values just plummeted. And so you can see the recovery now. So real estate is now, all that big capital sources out there are looking at the trends now, and they're seeing, hey, real estate's a good investment again, instead of being this bad thing. And so we're really encouraged by this. We're seeing a real spike in returns coming back, and you can pull that up out of NACREIF. And look at, they have those for each asset class: office, retail, industrial, and multifamily, and I think hospitality. So now we've got all this kind of good news starting to happen. So developers, and developers like to develop. Those people have just been, for the last 3 years, dying on the vine. And they like to build, they like to develop. I mean, they're like addicts. They're like, they got to have it. And there's been nothing going on. So now that we're getting some good news back in the market and a need for newer housing because of all these renters coming back into the market, finally the developers are able to say, let's go. It makes sense. And not only to them does it make sense, but the capital markets are now saying, development makes sense. Let's go find some projects to develop. So you can see Southeast Florida. That red line, just to give you an idea, is that 10-year average of deliveries. Okay, and we track this all over the state of Florida, so we know every deal that's been built, when it was built, and we fold it in and we track all this. So we can anticipate and potentially counsel our clients that if you've got a property sitting in an area where there's a lot of new development getting ready to hit there, time to sell, time to get out, So this graph is showing Southeast Florida. A lot of deals getting worked on right now. So you're seeing 12 pop up, and 13 will even pop up more here. Southwest Florida, just dead in the water. Tampa, starting to show some signs of development there. You can see the big kind of move up in market rate deliveries, and this is relative. Southeast Florida's 5,000. Tampa's 10-year average is 3,400. So again, this is really good for Tampa, because that's going to help stimulate activity and stimulate some jobs with some of the new development that's going to start happening there. Orlando, a little less, but I think you're going to see in 13 Orlando start to pop up. Same thing in Jacksonville, a little bit slower to kind of get traction as it relates to new development. So we're seeing Jacksonville maybe 13, 14. We did just sell a site to a developer, so they'll probably start it somewhere in 12 and deliver it in 13. And there's a few more of those going on in Jacksonville right now. So that's kind of the real quick overview of the apartment industry, where we're seeing it from a demand side, where we're seeing supply potentially coming. And so I thought I'd shift into a little bit. People always ask me, well, tell me about your business and what you all do. And That could take forever because it really is, it's involved. But I'll give you the best case life of a deal to give you an example of what it takes to get a deal from start to finish. And to start this with the valuation of the proposal, that's when someone says, okay, I'll think about selling. I'm thinking about selling. Would you guys value this and tell me what you think you can get? There's a lot of time and effort spent on our part tracking those people year over year over year to stay in front of them so that when this time comes when they want to sell, we're in front of them and we get the call. So then we ramp up and we put together a big proposal and valuation for them. It's a document about that thick. And they'll typically will go out to a couple of other brokers like our firm and ask them for the same proposal. Sometimes they'll have criteria listed on what they want you to really address and focus on. And then we have to go typically to their offices and put on a presentation on why you should hire us and why are we better than these other three, firms that you think are worthy of your business. But it is highly competitive, and it's gotten a lot more competitive since I started 23 years ago, and I was the only one doing it really in the state of Florida. There was another woman working in Tampa, and she and I were really the only ones working in the apartment business. Now there's everybody and their brother wants to be an apartment broker. So much more competitive landscape out there. That process takes 2 weeks. We'll say, all right, come on up, give us your pitch, make your presentation. Then they go through a process of deciding which broker they want to hire. We'll negotiate a listing agreement and get that secured. And when I say best case, this is really, really best case. This is fast track. Then we get hired. We prepare an offering book. This is a somewhat condensed version of a package, but this is on an equity placement deal we just did. And I have some of these I'll just pass around. But that'll take us 3 weeks to get the book together. It has everything you really need to know in order to make us an offer. That's an intelligent offer. So we go out, and a big part of our job is to go answer all the questions that buyers are going to have, investors are going to have, so that they can make their offer, and we know it's been underwritten properly. We have a call for offers date that is set and given to them when we hand them their offering materials. They have a date certain, which is about 3 to 4 weeks out, to get your offer in. We go through a process of touring the assets, setting up tours to show the property. And we require that if you're going to make a bid and you want us to consider it, you need to come see the property. If you haven't come seen this asset, we're not going to really give your bid as serious consideration because we don't know what someone might see or not like or whatever when they get to the property. We don't know that, but if we're trying to counsel our client on who to pick to buy this asset. And typically we'll generate 15 to 20, 25 offers on a deal. It's a lot of management. It's a lot of showings. It's a lot of time spent on the phone answering questions. Okay? It's a huge time pig to have to deal with that many buyers. And those are the people that made the offers. Now take all the people that looked at the deal. We'll have hundreds of people pull down our offering materials online. Hundreds that are interested looking at it. But only, in the end, 15 to 20 make the offer. But that's part of that marketing process time frame. It's accelerated into a 3 to 4 week period. We then collect the offers, and we really drill down on them, make sure that we put them into a matrix that's a summary matrix for our client so they can easily see, and the top price is listed first, and we work our way down, all the terms of each of those offers, any nuances of those offers. We really do a good job culling through those offers and present it to the client for us to sit down with them and strategize on the direction we want to take. And that's part of the buyer selection process. So we'll narrow it down to maybe 3 or 4 groups that we think are the best at that particular point in time. Then we conduct buyer interview calls with them and the client so that they can all sit on the phone and hear the same thing we're hearing about how they're going to capitalize the deal, where the money's coming from. We want to know you got the money. If you don't have the money, we're not wasting our time. We're not letting a deal get tied up with someone to just go out fishing. You know, we want to know you got the money and you're going to close. Or if not, we're moving on to the next one. And we might even give up some price. If that next buyer is a little bit lower in price, but they got all cash, and we know we've done business with them before, we know they're efficient, and they're not going to retrade us, they may get the deal. But all that discussion goes in behind the curtain with the client. It's another value we provide. If we don't know you, I'm going to put out an email throughout my entire 24 offices, and I'm going to ask about you. Has anybody done business with this guy? You know? And I'll get the phone calls, well, yeah, they're, you know, blah, blah, blah. They're good or they're bad or they're tough closers, you know, or they strung us out. Well, that's really helpful information to know when you're trying to pick the best buyer for this deal. Because in our business, we're representing our client. They handed us an exclusive listing, exclusive. It's an assignment. Go sell this asset for us. I'm charging you with responsibility to sell this $23 million, $40 million, $100 million asset. I'm giving it to you. Make it happen. So the last thing we want to do is have false starts, because if we have a false start with somebody, now all those other bidders that were there right behind, we got to go back to them. Well, guess what that spells? Oh, your first buyer crapped out on you. Oh, okay, well, maybe I can't pay that price that I had on the table before. I might have to back it down a little bit. Now the scales shift a little bit, so we never really want to go into that position if we can avoid it, and that's in large part because we work so hard picking the first buyer. Contract negotiations, you know, these can go on for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Some are easy, some can be brutal. They're all different. It depends. Every deal's got a different buyer and a different seller. So personalities get involved, attorneys get involved. A lot of people are involved in this, which makes it complex. So as the broker, you got to kind of keep everybody, you know, heading in the same direction. Let's not get so caught up in our egos here. Is it that important to you? Is that representation that important to you? You know? So that's a big part of our job. Then contract gets signed. Buyer's got 30 to 45 days, depending on the negotiation of the timetable, to do their due diligence. Well, this can vary from, I mean, I did a deal once with a private investor. He drove up. He used a standard residential FAR agreement. The owner met us at the property. He says, we walked around the property. He says, and he says to the owner was the developer. This is a newly developed property. Any problems? No. No construction problems? No, this job went very smoothly. The developer was from Atlanta. The property was in West Palm Beach. And so he gets his cell phone out and he calls City of Green Acres, building department, right there. We're standing right there. So I'm at this job. Can I talk to the building inspector that inspected this job? Yeah, well, hold on. So he gets this building inspector on the phone. Hey, I'm at this job. Any problems here? How did this one go? Okay, good. Hangs up the phone, walks over to the seller, gets on the trunk of the car, signs a check for $500,000 and this 2-page contract. The developer, he's a very sophisticated developer out of Atlanta. They develop multiple properties. And I'm standing there, and he's looking at me, I'm looking at him, I'm going, whoa, you got to be kidding me. So hands him a check, signs the contract, hands him a check. Says, this is hard right now. I'm ready to do this. Hey, we closed it in like 15 days, all cash. It's like a $25 million deal. The extreme of due diligence is these institutions that we work with. Wow, I mean, it's just intense. And the numbers of people that span the whole scale and ladder of those organizations, and they're big organizations with a lot of people that are involved. When they're on a deal and they're under contract and they all are going to come in and see it. And so you spend not just one tour with them before they make their bid. Once you select them, we may have to conduct. We have to make, on one deal, we had to make tour books to hand out as they were coming through to tour the asset after we had basically cut the deal. Because then our job is, there might be 15 of those people come through at different times, and each one of them could walk away and say, I don't like this for this reason. And the deal's done. All it takes is one to not like it. So we have to be very proactive in making sure that they're getting the proper information, they're getting a good tour of the asset, everything's going well. Another big part of the process of what we go through. Once due diligence is completed, usually there's stuff that has to be dealt with and negotiated. There's issues that come up, physical issues, economic issues, stuff on every deal happens. So we get into this point, we got to go over all this. Some of it we negotiate, some of it we don't, and get the meeting of the minds ready to go to a closing. And the money goes hard. So a big part of our job gets done at that point once the money's hard. And then we simply kind of wait for a closing. I haven't been to a closing maybe in 20 years. We don't go to closings. It used to be the only reason a broker went to the closing was so they could cut your commission when you're at the closing table. So we stopped going. All right, a couple deals that we've done this year as case studies for you. This is a property in Southeast Florida. This is an interesting story, and I've got some additional notes on it. We were hired in April of '08 to sell this property by a major institution. So we went through our process that I just showed you. We had 35 offers. 35 offers. We had the high price that was on the table, okay? And the initial, so that you understand, the initial listing was signed in April of '08. Lehman collapsed in October of '08. So there's that process we got to go through. So we may now be in June to the point where we've got all these offers on the table and we're getting ready to pick a buyer. $27.5 million is a high price. The average of the top 10 offers was 26.2. So it's that close, that tight. You know, pretty conventional type deal. So we pick the buyer goes through due diligence. Meanwhile, the capital markets are starting to crumble. You had Bear Stearns go out. That was before Lehman. And then all the problems started happening. Well, that's starting to get through the marketplace. And guess what? We couldn't hold the deal together. It was just, everything was unraveling. And this is in the third quarter of '08. So no deal. 35 offers. We go back to all the other groups that were at the table with their offers. No, we're done. We're closing up here for the next 12 months. You know, not looking good out there. Okay, wonderful. So the client pulls the deal off the market. We get through '08, we get through '09, and oh, here, hold on a second. I don't want you to see that one yet. They come back to us and say, okay, we want you to sell, we want to go again. We want to try and sell this asset again. So that's May of '09, right? We tee it up, get it, you know, have to totally redo the packaging and everything because a lot changed in 2 years. So second time, May of '09, we're probably June or July of '09, we call for offers. We get 36. We close 7 months later at the end of '09, okay? Remember the highest offer I told you was $27.5 million at the first go-around? We closed at $17.5 million. $10 million degradation to value because of the capital markets collapse and the economy going into recession. Yeah, right. But the seller knew, I mean, this was, you know, they knew, they understood. This was the new market. And it was unfortunate, but, you know, that pre-08 time frame was just craziness. So a lot of that 27 million was hyper-inflated value. And it was just unfortunate that the window closed right when we were at the edge to go through it, okay? Now, 2 years go by. The buyer who we sell it to is a private group in South Florida. This property was in exceptional condition. It was very well, the owner of this asset is a major institution, I won't mention them. These people are phenomenal. I mean, they really get it. They know how to operate properties. It was not like a mismanaged property. It was pristine. One of the best asset managers that I know of and have worked with for years, and a top drawer property management company. So it wasn't a management problem. So, because some investors like to think they can go in and there's a bad manager going on and we can take it over and we can apply our expertise and really take this deal up. And in some cases, that's possible. That's plausible. And I see that all the time. But in this case, that wasn't the situation. This was just a market opportunity. So they, and to give you an example on how the NOI had dropped. Our NOI on the first go-around that we were using was $1.58 million, okay? When we sold it at the end of '09, it had dropped to 1.16. So that's what caused the steep drop in value, and that was due to the economy just tanking. So first time in Florida we had population actually go negative. First time, and I think since I moved here, the population went negative. So consequently, this buyer picks it up, and they put their $250,000 of some slight capital improvements to it, and the economy starts picking itself back up, and all those people are becoming renters. So the supply is driving their occupancy up, or the demand is driving their occupancy up, so much so that they came to us and in February and said, look, we think we've really got a great opportunity to sell here. Would you guys value it and let us know what you think? So we did, and came back to them, and they listed the asset with us in February. 12 offers versus 35, which was the height of the market. We just closed it last month in October for $24.35 million. So 27.5 in '08, down to 17, and back up, just closed at 23. They were able to drive their NOI to 1.7 million. So when I was showing you that slide about, the demand just pushing in, driving rents, driving occupancies, and all that really was all going to the bottom line. So that's an interesting story. So when, your professors tell you, or I don't know what they've told you, but at least back in the day when I was in school, it's like location, location, location. Location, that's it. You got to have the right, that's it. Well, baloney. It's all about timing. And this is a classic case of it because that location didn't change. And you know what? The asset really didn't change either. It was fabulous, beautiful asset, well maintained. But that change in value was all timing. And you'll see that over and over and over again. So obviously, having a good location is important. I don't want to dismiss that. But having a good location with really good timing is where you're going to get profit in real estate. Let's see. We just closed this deal. Interesting property. And Tim, this is the one I emailed you about. Maybe we'll have a council function. This is the one Barry bought. So this is called Midtown 24. It's located in Plantation, Florida. When the developer was pulling the trigger on this, we were all like, how could he get the capital to do this? Because it was right as the window was closing. But to his credit, he was able to get the capital. He had a great site. He had a wonderful concept, built it, was getting it through lease up. I went over and looked at it. and I was just, because he's a friend, I was blown away. And it's spectacular. I mean, it is a spectacular project for a multifamily deal, right in the heart of Plantation, which is a kind of, it's not really a suburb. It used to be a suburb, but now it's kind of moving a little urbanish with this type of development. And I'll show you the next slide is a new development that we just raised the equity for. So Midtown 24 is, you know, the institutions were all coming back into the market. They were willing to pay, you know, high 4s, 5% caps. And he said, let's go. Let's get it out there. So we just closed it. It sets the highest price per unit paid, certainly in the state of Florida, because there's nothing else that comes close right now in this year. Maybe in the Southeast, $275,000 a unit we got for this deal. It's you know, it's, and you say, wow, God, how you got to see it to understand why we were able to get 275. But there's also, you know, 5 cap on pro forma. It had not yet stabilized, but it will. It's an incredible asset. Very cool place if we can get that to happen. Bought by a major REIT, and part of their strategy and why they're buying assets like this. They're smart, very smart people. They're selling out of older assets, and a lot of the REITs are doing this, and they're buying newer assets. So, you know, it's probably going to take CB a while before they can match that one, but I'm sure they'll be trying. Land in Jacksonville, we just closed. So there's been no land sale activity unless it was just absolute distressed bank taken back deal. This is another interesting story. That's why I'm bringing these out for you all to see. 23 acres. You can see good location in Jacksonville. Group bought it, which was a local developer operator, really good top drawer company, had offshore capital that invested with them. Bought it in 07 and paid $12.3 million. Okay, 07. Now, they were going to develop it. And of course, the development market just gone. You can't develop it. They've sat on the land, seeing if it would recover over time. Finally, they just threw in the towel. It was either Dutch or German money that was behind it, decided, look, you know, let's just liquidate it. Let's just take our losses and move on. So they hired us to sell it. And we closed on this. Last month was a good month. We closed on this deal. $6.15 million, a 50% degradation to value from 07 to 11. So, you know, you can see it's good. Same location. Location didn't change. It's a good location, but a 50% drop in value because of timing. It's bad timing. So now they're going to develop it. And what was interesting about this deal was typically when we take a deal out like this, we get all the developers that come at it and get it tied up, and then they go get their capital. Well, this deal was bought by the capital, and they've since hired a developer to fee develop it, and guess who it is? It's the developer operator that was in it before. So they're going to get another shot, you know, at a much better land basis. This land basis at 15 a door works. This will be successful. This will be a successful deal because the economic structure of this deal works in a rising market. Okay, this one, I mean, this is an incredible deal. Stiles Corporation owns this property, and it's right at 595 and University, just down the street from Midtown 24 that we just closed on. Stiles came to us with this site. They had bought, there's a retail center on this with a couple out parcels. They ended up picking up an additional parcel to add to it to aggregate this incredible site. Hired us in June of 07 to help them raise the equity to do basically what was back then a mixed-use development, which included apartments, office, retail, hotel. It was about a $125 million development deal. So we, you know, teed it up and built all the marketing materials for it, went out to the market, got some interest from some equity sources. Again, this is June of '07, so by the time we were late into '07, the capital for development really started getting nervous. And we ended up not being able to pull a deal together because the market was deteriorating and declining. There was also this mixed use concept. Investors were having difficulty getting their arms around mixed use because you really have kind of commercial investors and then you have multifamily investors, and when you mix office, retail, hospitality, and multifamily, you got to have someone that really knows all that, can understand it before they give you a check for, what on that deal would have been probably $40 million to capitalize the equity. So Stiles put it back in the drawer. Now the recovery's starting. Seems to be some demand. They came to us in the third quarter of last year saying, what do you think? We said, we think we can get it done. We think there's a market there now. But we think if you can just bifurcate this deal to just apartments and you keep the commercial separate, so all we're working on is an apartment deal, single asset, that there'll be more investors that will go after it than there will be if it has to be aggregated into this one big project. That ended up being the case, and there were more investors that were willing to take a run at it. We just signed a joint venture agreement with a major institution that's going to fund 90% of the equity. It's a 90-10 deal where, of the equity component, this is $60 million construction. They will get a 65% construction loan from their bank, which means they have to come up with 35% from somewhere else, from their resources, others. So they hired us to say, look, we want you to help us come up with the equity. So we went out, we did our normal marketing of like we normally do, but we do it to equity sources that are equity investors versus basically retail buyers. And we just got the deal cut. They're going to write a check for $20 million to capitalize this. The developer's going to put the land in for his 10%, and we're going to break ground in January. This will be phenomenal. If you look at the cost structure on this, it's less than $200,000 a unit for this. This is the location. It's right at the yellow outline right here at the intersection of 59. Look at that exposure. University Drive is one of the highest traffic drives in the county, and 595 is over capacity. They're having to add now lanes onto 595. Apartment developers love that visibility. It's key for successful apartment development because their drive-by traffic is a huge part of their getting their traffic in, and they have to constantly get it in. If you have 300 units, this is 320 units. In Florida, you have about a 50% turnover rate because apartment dwellers move. They like that flexibility. So 50% turnover rate means you got to release 160 units every year. So your work's not done once you get it up and stabilized. Now you got to keep the machine going and keep it leased at 50% of units coming available every year to you. So that high visibility allows that traffic to just keep coming in and keep coming in and keep coming in, and it really helps those properties that have the visibility. This is the new plan, not including the retail, but just the apartments out by 595. Less than $200,000 a door. We just sold Midtown for $275. This deal's screaming. I mean, this deal is going to be a great deal and a very high profile deal. Stiles, they're going to do very well with this. So those are 4 deals that I thought had some interesting spin and stories. I'm glad you all stayed awake for it. Dr. Archer asked me, I asked him what would be of interest to you all, and so I'm kind of going through that. And he asked me, what's made you successful? So, success is a relative term. And to everybody in this room, it's going to mean something different. And it's not necessarily financial. So, success to me was providing for my family and making sure that, that they were taken care of. And so that was a big motivator for me. Some people don't have that type of motivation. They have different motivations, but that was mine. So, to do that, I rolled up my sleeves from day one, and I really never stopped, because guess what? You know, if you want something, you got to go out and get it. You know, it's like my dad said, Dad, you know, I said they had these varsity 10-speed bikes that came out, and I said, Dad, I'd love to get one of those 10 speeds for my birthday. He says, you would? You really like one of those? Go get a job and get one. That's what he said. I wanted a Marantz stereo, which none of you will know what that is, but you guys will. Big speakers like this tall, you know, I mean, you take up a full room. God, that was incredible sound. Can I get one of those, Dad? You know, can you help me out with one of those? Yeah, sure, I can help you. Go get a job, and then you can buy one. So anyway, 10 keys to success. Burning passion. You better really love what you're doing. You really do. You need to be honest with yourself. Do you really love what you're doing? Because if you do, it's going to make a world of difference. If you don't like what you're doing, you're going to be miserable, and you know what? You're not going to do well. It's that simple. You got to like going to work. You got to like what you're doing. Because if you like what you're doing, you'll put in the 80 hours, 100 hours. I worked solid weekends for 2 years. I never took a day off. But I liked what I was doing. So it made it easier. If you don't like what you're doing, man, you can't wait for that 5 o'clock bell to ring and be out of there. So, you know, I know it's never ideal that you can find that perfect spot, but keep it in mind. And if you're unhappy where you are, don't stay. Go try and find something else that's going to get your interest. Don't burden the group or company that you're with just to get a paycheck if you're not happy doing what you're doing. Unwavering ethics. And you know, we've all seen what's happened. Just, I mean, it blows my mind what I see that just keeps popping up just in this last week with what's happened. And, you know, not to mention the Bernie Madoffs of the world. And, you know, I will tell you that if you don't stay ethical in your work and your business, it will eventually catch up to you in some way, shape, or form. And the converse happens if you're unwavering in your ethics. That ends up coming back to you many-fold over, because people remember you were honest. You were honest with what you told them. I'm working for a woman right now who's the head of dispositions for a major pension fund. Major. She's been there 20 years, and she's very high up. I met her over 20 years ago in that first downturn that I just started in the business, and I was in office building investment sales. She came in, she says, I want to talk to you about selling this office building in Boca. And I'm going, okay, come on in, but you're not going to like what you're going to hear. So she comes in, I said, look, I'm going to tell you that if this was I'm a broker. Brokers got, you know, they're just get whatever they can to work on. I said, if I own this asset, and it was a premium asset on Glades Road in Boca Raton, beautiful buildings, but we were in a no market. There was no market. There was just the grave diggers that would be players for this. I said, I wouldn't sell this asset right now. And if you do have to sell it, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a miserable experience to try and sell into this kind of an environment. She sat there and said, you know what? You're the first broker that was honest with me. We're closing a deal right now together. The deal in Jacksonville, that's a 2-property portfolio. One was in Tampa and one's in Jacksonville. And that 20-plus years ago that I was honest with her, I'm closing this one, and I'm going to close the Tampa deal in 2 weeks. $50 million worth of apartments for that company. So it comes unwavering ethics. If you're in any company that you're nervous, what's going on, get out of there. Run for the door. Samurai discipline. Man, you know, you have got to be disciplined, especially if you're going to be in any type of entrepreneurial position. But even within an organization where you're trying to add value, you're disciplined, okay? Plan your work, work your plan, never deviate. Get it done. And Carly will tell you what I hammer home all the time is, don't procrastinate. Take the toughest stuff and get it over with and get it off your list and get it done. but be disciplined in your work, okay, on a consistent basis. People will notice that. And people that end up noticing that are the people that are above you, and they look and they pay attention. And that's how you get involved. I want that person with me. I just got promoted, and I want her coming with me. You just got promoted, because that's how you're perceived. If you're a 9-to-5 punch clocker that's just doing the bare minimums, guess what? 5 years from now, you're going to be a 9-to-5 punch clocker just doing the bare minimums, likely in the same position that you were when you started. So, very important. Strong mentorship. I touched on this earlier. I had great mentoring between my father and Bob Sullivan, who was my mentor when I first joined CB. You know, some people aren't as fortunate as I am to have had that type of mentorship, but boy, seek it out. And any of the organizations you get in, find that person who you can kind of, you know, that you know is really good, is, you know, doing well, and draft off of them. Help them. Do whatever you can to help that person out, to learn from them, because that allows you to perpetuate your advances much quicker. Okay, so that's important. You have to constantly be gaining skills, which I read books. I never took a sales course, but I'm in high-end sales. But I read a lot of sales books to try and make myself a better salesman. I was petrified to get up in front of a small group to have to give a presentation. My heart would be jumping out of my three-piece suit. 3 pieces, yeah, I know you guys don't know what that is, but that's what we wore back then. So invest in public speaking. Watch good speakers. Watch Bill Clinton. Pull up speeches of Bill and Ronald Reagan. These guys are phenomenal speakers. Learn to speak well in front of groups. Because even if you're not in sales technically, we're all selling something. We're selling ourselves. We're selling an assignment that we just completed, and you've got to go show your superior how great it is and why it's so great. We've got to have good skills of delivering. So if you're afraid of that, go to Toastmasters, you know, and acquire the skills that you can use to advance yourself as you're going through your career. If you don't do that and you just flatline, that's what you're going to do. You may even go down if you don't advance your skills, because there's the next group that are going to be sitting in these seats next year that are a year younger than you that are going to be out there competing with you. And 5 years from now, and 10 years from now. So look what I got to compete with now 23 years later. So, and they're good. Makes me better, but good competition does make you better. Work hard, you know, you hear that, we gotta work hard. You got to work smart. I mean, anybody can work hard, but sometimes you're working hard and you're not getting anywhere. Just be smart about how you're working and what you're working on, okay? You know, obviously you take pride in all you do, because that ends up showing up with the people that you're working with, people you're working for, and that woman that I represented 20 plus years ago that we're doing business still today, because I take pride in everything that I do, and I do it to the absolute best of my ability, all the time. Circulate to percolate, okay? I know, you know, you guys don't use coffee machines like we used to use, but relationships with people is really the hallmark of my success. That is the hallmark of my success. All these other factors are important, but build relationships and help people, and they don't forget it. And it might be 10 years later. It might be 20 years later. They don't forget it. They don't forget something you might have done for them. You've gone the extra mile. You've sent them a birthday card, you know. Build your, like just in this room. You know, you guys are going to graduate from this. You're going to move on in your own direction. But you should stay connected with each other, because you just never know what can happen to somebody in an organization. All of a sudden, they're looking for someone else. And because you had a relationship, he calls you up and says, hey, I got a great position for you. You would love this company. Ooh, okay. So work on relationships and keep them organized. If you're going to build relationships, maintain a database. And casually, when you're finding out, how many kids do you have? 2. Okay, let's go in the database. You know, what are their names? You know, you find this. She's laughing at me, but take an interest in people and remember what they're telling you about themselves. You know, I don't have the memory to remember everything people, and I know a lot of people now 23 years later, but take an interest in them. They appreciate that. Raise the bar always. I mean, if we didn't, this is our mantra every January, how are we going to raise the bar? How are we going to get better? What are we going to do to bump CB off this year? So if you don't have this mentality, then you are dead in the water a year or 2 later. You can get away with it for a good year, keep doing the same old, but you need to be raising the bar and thinking about raising the bar. How can I get better? What can I be doing better? What can this company be doing better? And you come up with those ideas and they're meaningful, the head of that company is going to take notice of it. You know, don't just sit back and wait for your orders. And then, you know, the last point is obviously, you know, you got to have fun. You got to have some balance. You got to have fun. Carly knows I like to have fun, but you know, life is a short time. You know, I mean, really, our time on Earth is a short time. So find the things you enjoy doing, and have the balance to not only work hard, but you work hard and you're successful. You're offered the opportunity to play hard and enjoy life. And so that's kind of my 10 keys to success, and everybody's going to have different ones, but those are mine. CEL is I'm closing with this because I'm sure this is probably the most interest to you. Our consultant that we've, you know, hired, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, he's a California-based consultant that we have come in and annually look at us objectively to see how we're doing. You know, we think we're doing great, you know. Wow, we're so good. Look at the 24 offices and all the deals we do, you know. But you got to have people being honest with you about how you're doing. Seek that out. Sit down. How am I doing? Please tell me. I'll take all the bad with even a little good, but tell me how I'm doing. That's how I'm going to get better. CEL has been our consultant for many years. He's a real estate industry consultant. He's probably one of the top out there that you know, we know. He's active nationally, California-based, really has a good pulse on the market. So that baby boomer graph that I want you to pull up, you know, when you walk out of this room, and you're going to start to see all the gray hairs that are approaching now, 55, 60, 65. There's a lot of them in there. That's going to be like a vacuum of opportunity for younger people like you. I mean, the landscape couldn't look better long term as a career in the real estate business because of that. There's this perception that colleges and universities are not producing job-ready people as graduates. So you people, very wise in coming and getting your graduate degree. You'll be perceived, as I perceive, I really will only hire people with a master's or an MBA degree because I know that they're that much better trained, smarter, mature, and that's what we want. That's what we're looking for. And they're serious. If they've made an investment into a graduate program of both their money and their time, they're serious people. And they may not have been very serious as undergrads. So average employee tenure, 3.8 years. This is just staggering. But it's the reality of our new world. And people don't have the loyalties that they used to have working for GM for 25 years and stepping out and getting your pension and all your health and everything until you die. And so, you know, I'm gonna be loyal to my company because my company's loyal to me. Well, that's over with. That's over. So now you've got tenure way down, which means there's more turnover in these organizations. So that provides opportunity because if someone's leaving, someone else has to be hired. That's a good thing for people looking for jobs next year. There's going to be further consolidation on the horizon, according to Chris, which means smaller companies are going to be getting eaten up by larger companies. So I guess he's seeing more of that. There's more women entering positions of leadership and authority in our industry, and what's amazing to me in my business, we have very few women. And it's not because we would welcome more women in the industry. They just, for whatever reason, don't seem to have the interest in what we do. Maybe, we have to do a better job of educating, what we do. That's a good sign, though. The greater diversity and independence at the board level is also a very positive sign. You don't have these closed-minded boards that just think the same way. There's more expansion. There's more diversity. They want different people to come in to the organization. They can add different, ways of seeing things, because we all see things very differently. This is, you'll love this one. This is why I brought these slides, because I know you want some good news. 15 to 25,000 qualified professionals. There'll be a shortage by 2015. That's what he says. And we use this guy, and he's smart, and he's good. So this is not a good thing, because the boomers got whacked in this residential melees that we just experienced. So unfortunately, they're having to work longer to support themselves because we're living longer. I mean, my mom and my wife's parents are now well into their 80s, 83. So 3 out of my 4 parents are well into their 80s. So the normal retirement time of, say, 65 years old, if you're going to live till 85 now because of medical advancements and all the technologies now that are coming and saving people's lives, is causing people to have to support themselves financially for a longer time period than my parents' generation did, because life expectancy is going out. So where is that going to provide opportunity is definitely in the retirement elderly population housing spectrum, which we have we formed a seniors housing division within our organization because we saw these stats and we realized it's coming. It's going to be a wave. My in-laws just moved into an independent living center, sold their house, beautiful, 4-bedroom house. They were fortunate to sell it, and they moved into an independent living facility that has all the restaurants, and she doesn't have to cook anymore. They got all this stuff going on for the stimulating these elderly, and it's great. They love it. So seniors housing, for you all looking at opportunity, I think it's going to just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and just again pull up that aging chart, and it's revealing. This is his outlook. Hiring is going to go up 3 to 6% next year. Greater reliance on performance scorecards, so they're being more critical of their people, which means if you're not doing a good job, you could be, you could be in jeopardy. They are now, as they think we may be starting to recover, using temporary kind of employees, because they're not convinced yet with all the stuff that's going on in DC and the economy that we're not going to double dip. So, you don't want to bring on someone permanently, go through all the training and get them acclimated, and that takes months, and then turn around and have a double dip occur, and we got to start laying off people again. So that's that nervousness that's there right now. Hopefully we're going to pop out of it. Let's see, for return of 401 matching, I guess that's a good sign. Healthcare is continuing to, we're noticing more and more healthcare being passed on to the employee. I'm not as tied into that stuff, so I really can't speak to it, but key geographic differences will emerge related to compensation. So obviously the stronger real estate markets, Washington, D.C., California, Southeast Florida maybe starting a little bit, those markets are going to have more opportunities. Focus on employee productivity measures, upgrade, replacement, replacing hiring will continue. Growing demand for the new CEO that's going to replace all of us 55, 65-year-olds. Capital markets expertise they're looking for. Asset management experience. You know, asset management, I work with a lot of asset managers, and it's a key person in an organization that truly can understand how to optimize an asset and its performance, and they add tremendous value in an organization, and consequently, if they're really good at it, they move up pretty quickly. Because I didn't hear anybody in the interviews, or not in the interviews, but in the introductions that you all made this fall say, I really want to be in asset management, you know. But that's something people should keep their eye on, because there's demand for it. Finance professionals, similar to capital markets. Experienced CFOs and controllers, public sector experts. You know, the beauty of our business and industry is we're in the real estate business. It's everywhere. I mean, we're sitting in this room. This is real estate. You're going to go home and sleep in your apartment tonight. It's real estate. You're going to go play golf at a golf course. That's real estate. It's everywhere. And it's all owned by somebody or something. Okay? It could be government owned, but that real estate's got to be managed and dealt with. It's privately owned. It's going to be, you know, high net worth type of families and individuals for the most part, and institutional investors own a lot of real estate that has to be dealt with and managed. So those are opportunities. Distressed debt, still seeing a lot of that, and we're going to continue to see more of it. I sat in on a panel last week that says we got another year or two of it. CRMs, commercial review management, new business generators, market and brand specialists, leaders, not managers, and analysts are going to be in demand, according to Chris. And again, the green, everybody's wanting new green developments, so there's going to be demand in the workforce for people that understand it. Lastly, this is the last side, so hang in there. These are not mine, these are Chris's. This is what employers are looking for: knowledge of the business, cultural fit and shared values, technical proficiencies, bottom line focus, passion for the business, there's that word again, business acumen, leadership skills, and contributing team member. So that's Chris's, you know, 4 slides. If you all want these, oh, there's more. Multitasking, which I know you all do that. Growth career potential, 24/7 employment outlook, customer service skills, relationship skills, data interpretation skills, communication skills, solutions mentality. This is through, and he acquires this information through surveys. He goes out, he surveys all these companies and all the people that are making decisions as to who they're going to hire. I have this in a slide format that he sent me. If any of you want it, you know, email me and I'd be happy to send it to you. So that's it. Any questions? Well, a lot is going to be based on the property manager, but the property manager receives their direction and their budgeting from the asset manager. So the asset manager is overseeing multiple properties in that organization typically, more so than they can often handle. That's why the better ones that are really good at it, they are good listeners, so they'll listen to that property manager. That property manager is making recommendations. They'll go and try and validate, are those good recommendations or not? Really, what is this going to do for the bottom line? And so they are very important people as it relates to real estate value. And good asset management and good property management could swing value 5% in either direction. It's amazing to me a property manager is only paid $50,000 a year that is responsible for a 350-unit apartment property that may have a value of $40 to $50 million, because that person is really the one driving the ship there. So yeah, management's really important. Everything's got to be managed. Everything. Just think about it. this building's got to be managed by somebody. Somebody's in this university managing this building. All those retail properties where all the bars are that you guys hang out in, you know, those are owned by somebody, and all that's got to be managed by somebody, that real estate. So just go across the United States. I mean, there's a lot of work in managing real estate, and there's a lot of value in the people that are really good at it. There's room for advancement of those people because they make a big difference. So. What type do we broker? Tax credit, tax exempt bond type properties. There's a spectrum of those types of assets that vary from state to state depending on what the enhancements might have been available, what type of tax credit opportunities were available, what type of bond financing was available. We have specialists that do nothing but that, and it's a complicated area of our business. And I don't work on that type of property and never have, so I don't speak to it as well as our specialist. If you have an interest, though, I can put you in touch with the people that we have in ARA that's all they do, and they know it better than anybody. So if you have questions, shoot me an email. I'll remember, and I'll forward it on so you can talk to them, and they'll spend time with you if you want to learn more about it.
Coming out of the program, someone who might be interested in investment sales or brokerage in general, you hear they can be kind of hard thing to sort of get right into a career right out of the gate from after graduation. So what kind of advice would you have for maybe any of us that are looking to sort of touch on that path more?
For me, I'm living proof that it was a great career. Now, is it for everybody? There are certain qualifications for people that I've seen succeed and that I've seen fail. Certain types of personalities, so it's not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart. I can tell you that. It's a tough business. It's a tough gig when you're deep into complex transactions with people they're responsible for a lot of dollars involved with these transactions that can move, But for me, you're dealing at the absolute top of the marketplace with incredibly smart people that are interesting to work with. The transactions, some people manufacture widgets. I manufacture deals. That's what we do. And, my deals are brochures and pictures. There's nothing really there that you can grab onto. It's a deal that happens at a point in time. But it's a service that allowed the participants in the two sides of the transaction to, what we bring to the real estate industry. Real estate is basically an illiquid asset. It's a very illiquid asset. It's not like a stock or a bond that if you wanted to trade your stock or bond position, we can do it right now with your iPads or your BlackBerries. Boom, done. Put the order in, it's done. It's sold, you've got your money. I showed you the best case timetable to liquidate an apartment property in a structured fashion. A couple of those deals I put up there we've been working on for years. That Southeast Garden apartment deal we worked on for 2-3 years. So you have to really, get yourself, if you want to do it, get yourself a top drawer company and someone inside that company that will take you on, and you may have to eat dirt for a month or for a year and be willing to, but you want that mentorship, you want that someone, and when you're there, you're going to work your tail off to show them how much you're going to learn in a year, how valuable you're going to become in a year, to where they're going to be saying, you got to be on my team. I got to have you, So that's what I did. I found the best company that I could go to learn the business. I got an incredible mentor, and that helped me kind of fast track into it. But then there's, what I was alluding to earlier of, you have to be, it's a constant process of learning, of upgrading, of changing, and raising the bar and improving your skills. And It never stops once you get in there. So, anybody else? Oh yeah, the banks are starting to sell. It really varies. I mean, it really varies on the asset. Well, there's a bigger discount in a portfolio per play, usually in the distressed asset market, because they're able to move a large chunk out in one deal with one group versus taking all those assets in that portfolio and having to feed them out in the market, you know, painful. So if they've taken the write down and they've stopped kicking the can down the road, which they're starting to do now, the banks are starting to sell these assets, and they're doing them through auctions, they're doing them through brokers. So we're starting to see, we spent 2 years, you know, because as soon as the Lehman event happened, we had to cut our staff, unfortunately, and just got lean and mean because we didn't know how long it was going to last, but we knew one thing, that the banks were going to be ending up with assets. And that's where, you know, it's just like my days back in the last, well, not the last downturn, but the first one I entered when the government created the RTC, the Resolution Trust Corporation, which took all the assets from the failed S&Ls that they took over, put them in the RTC and gave them the RTC and said, get rid of this stuff. And so they hired people like me to help them sell these assets. That's how I worked on a shopping center, and I was an office broker. You know, you were filling out forms and sending them in, and then, you know, there's 15, 20 brokers. They didn't even interview you. So this clearing now that's going to be happening is there is going to be, this panel I sat on, because we don't, in the apartment business, we don't have a lot of distress, except at the very low end of the marketplace. So we haven't had a lot of distress type deals to work on. There's been some. We've done some bulk condo deals for banks. But the commercial side, you know, there's more volume of that that's making its way through now. So there will be good opportunities. I mean, there's people out there buying notes. Like Ram Realty was on the panel. Jim Stein was on the panel. They're buying notes and taking the notes, and they're going to the borrower, and they're cutting a deal with the borrower. So they're letting the borrower off the hook for their personal liability that's on that note and saying, just go away, you know, just go away. They were able to buy that note at a deep enough discount to where they just want to get access to the real estate. But if the borrower wants to pay them off, they bought that note at a steep enough discount that they're fine with that too. So if you want to pay me off, I just made a really nice return on my investment. So either way, they're fine. So there's been a lot of note sales occurring. It's more efficient for the banks to get rid of the notes versus having to foreclose on the asset, take the asset REO, turn it over to a manager, you know. Someone's got to deal with that asset versus just selling the note and getting rid of the note and being done with it. We had a couple people on this panel. I asked the question, have we hit bottom yet? I said, well, we might have hit bottom in pricing, but we haven't hit bottom relative to the distressed asset flow. And that may go on for 2 more years. So, yeah, there's going to be opportunity. There is right now. It's happening right now. Anybody else? You guys got a lot of questions. I knew you were smart in here because you picked real estate to go into and you picked this program to join. So I should have anticipated you were going to ask more questions.
I was just going to ask, you mentioned senior housing is going to be big. Right now, are you seeing any talks of development, or has there been transaction activity?
The problem with senior housing right now is demographically, it's phenomenal. Economically, my in-laws are a classic example. Seniors have to be able to sell the homes they're in to move into a seniors living community or facility. They are very reluctant to just generally give up that independence. Like my mother refuses to go into one. She should be in one, right? She should have been one 5 years ago. But, you know, no way, I'm not going in there. And she can't even remember what I told her 2 seconds ago, you know. So, you know, there's this, it's a challenge, and why many new developments of senior housing fail. And my father bought one out of bankruptcy. Incredible property. I mean incredible, and he made a fortune on it. Tremendous asset. What they fail to realize is the amount of, it's not like a renter for an apartment community that drives by, ooh, that one looks good, and it goes in, signs their check, and they're moving in 2 days. You know, they need it now. They got to have that apartment now. Seniors, they're living somewhere, and to make that step into admitting I'm getting old, I got to go into this seniors facility. And you do go into them, and you walk around, and there's a lot, you kind of, the wheelchairs and the walkers, and you're kind of like, you know, oh my goodness. My father's property that he had 2 wings, and, you know, they kind of shifted the healthier people and let them be in a community where they really wanted to be by themselves anyway. And they'd have cocktail parties and dances, and these people were having the time of their lives, and they really didn't want to be around people that were, you know, having problems. And so they, because of the design of this property, they were able to kind of segregate the two, and eventually these people would start getting sick, and they had that place to go to that was in the same facility. So now you're starting to see that more in the design of, you know, accommodating seniors, because you have the independents, they're healthy, but they want to go in for the socialization, all the fun things to do, you know, the art room and the billiards room and the, you know, stuff for them that's organized, movies, and they like it. It's a nice way for them to live, but then they eventually will start to have health issues as they're aging. Then what? So these properties that can take care of them at different levels. You have some properties, there's one down in Broward that's just phenomenal, John Knox Village, if any of you have seen it, but beautiful residential units that they have for the seniors. But if you get sick, they have another facility available for people that need care, medical care. Then they have another separate facility for Alzheimer's. So now, you know, as you're getting older and you're having different problems, they've got places they can put you, and you've never had to leave. So that type of knowledge is starting to be gained by developers. There hasn't been any development really to speak of because of the credit crisis, and the lead time of marketing to a seniors, so they'll send flyers out into a neighborhood to get that senior to actually come in and move in, it takes years. And guess who is the one driving it? It's not them. It's the kids. Saying, Mom, come on. You'd be so much better off in here, which she would be. She'd be so much better off than living in her house by herself, you know? But she's just so strong-willed and independent, does not want to give that up. So she hasn't driven a car in 10 years, but she tells me every time I see her, the doctor told me I can drive. Okay, all right. But that's the, you know, we're all going to be like that, you know? You're not going to give it up. You don't want to give it up. You're going to fight to the end, right? So, but that's the complexity of seniors housing, is just dealing with seniors. It's a whole different ballgame. But look at the graphs, man. It's going to be big. It really is. How are we going to deal with them? It's huge. Look at the boomer graph. And the halfway mark right now is about 57, 58. You're right in the middle, aren't you? It's a massive number of people heading into those later years that are, through all our medical advancements, are living longer. So we got to take care of them even longer than we used to. So there's this massive mountain of them coming, and they're living longer. Think about that. I feel bad for you guys. You're going to have to deal with us. So, but big emerging industry to not, if you're looking for that, what's coming as a logical demand, or a place where there's going to be demand, it's pretty obvious when you study it a little bit. All right. that it?
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Okay.